A waiting season does not mean that your purpose is not your purpose. I have felt this intense waiting season right now in a certain area of my life, in multiple areas, honestly. But in one area that I'm just constantly praying to God for, I'm praying for God to move in a specific area. And it's just so disheartening when you are constantly praying for a certain season to approach in your life. And I completely have felt so energetically depleted praying for the same thing over and over and over again. And I know what it's like to be in a season that feels stagnant. And I know what it feels like to be in an area in life that feels like that you are doing everything in your human power to make something happen, and it's just not moving. And I know what that feels like. I feel that we all as human beings know what it feels like to kind of be in a season where we're working really hard, but it just feels like nothing is coming of it. And I want to let you know today that something is coming of it. There was something that happened to me recently that, could have been potentially really good. But then I ended up getting rejected. And also, I have a coffee today. I feel like I never really have a drink with you guys. It is kind of watered down, but it's still really good. Look at my cute cup. Okay. I got rejected. And I've been getting rejected a lot recently in this specific area. And I was just like, yo, God, what's going on? So when I felt like I got an opportunity that could have really worked out and then I got rejected, it just hit a little closer to home because I was so much closer to having this specific thing that I really wanted. And being so close and then getting rejected, I was just so mad at God. I was so mad at God because I felt like that I deserved this opportunity. I felt like I deserved this opportunity to give back and also make some money, right? I felt like that I deserved this opportunity. I felt like I've been waiting a really long time. And I just was like, yes, this is my moment. Thank you, God. I was thanking God in advance for the opportunity. And then when it ceased to slip through my fingers, I was mad at God. I was very mad at God. I was upset. And I was saying to God, I was like, I need this. That I am in search of this. Everything that's going on more than I know, which we're getting to. But what's going on, and why are you refusing to give me what I need right now, And even though deep down I knew that I didn't want that specific opportunity, I just needed short term, I was still so mad at God because I was just like, God, why are you doing this to me? Like, it just feels like you are trying to teach me something all of the time when sometimes I already know what you're trying to teach me. I just need something. I need help. I need guidance. I need your hand in an area of life that I low-key have no control over. You know what I'm saying? And so I was just praying to God about it, and I was mad at him. I was talking to my friend Andy, and they were saying to write a letter to God, and I was just like, I honestly don't even have the energy to do that just because I'm so mad at God right now. And I was just really mad. And I wasn't necessarily mad at God and where I was like, I want to rebel, even though that was a little bit of a feeling, but not so much to the point where I was like, yeah, I'm going to rebel. And by rebel, I mean run back to a vice that fulfilled me for 30 minutes. But no, I just was, like whenever you're in a relationship, because that's what me and God are in, we're in a relationship. Whenever you're in a relationship with somebody and you just have days together where they do something not even to hurt you, but they just do something that just gets on your nerves, and they just do it on the wrong day, you know? They just do it on the wrong day at the wrong time, and even though it's not good to stay mad at your partner, but I think it is healthy to communicate that you are angry with what they've done to you. That's just kind of how I was feeling. It wasn't necessarily like we're breaking up, or how, like, I wasn't so angry to the point of, like I said, almost rebelling. Um, but I was just like, I'm mad. This is not cool, you know? So I just feel like that moment had me so raw in emotion and just so deep in my own feelings and in my own head, and I ended up just spiraling, and it just wasn't a good mental headspace for me to be in. So I think that as time is moving forward, and I've listened to a couple other podcasts about the waiting season, I just feel that the waiting season is such a time of fruitful nourishment. I feel like the waiting season is such a time where are getting the roots are growing underneath the surface right now. Like, it feels like it's such a season of true growth, even though like the surface doesn't really see. I'm feeling the growth within my body, and I'm doing the meditations, and I'm doing the hard work, I guess you could say, and it truly feels that something is moving, but the surface, you don't see it. And I think that is the most beautiful thing about the waiting season, is that in these waiting seasons we are experiencing so much growth, but it's all from within. And it's so crazy because we feel that God is ignoring us, and we feel that God is rejecting us, and we feel that God is neglecting us, when it's actually the opposite. And I think that it's healthy for us to have these feelings, not long term, not for years and months and whatever, but I think it's healthy for us to have this push and pull relationship with God, because it shows the true velocity of relationships. There's always a weird season with a partner where things just are like, what is going on between us? Like, is everything okay? Like, you know what I mean? And then it requires work for you to really understand what is going on between you two. And so I think it's the same way with God. Like, we are in a season, and we get in seasons with God that are just so confusing, that we as humans and as children are like, God, what are you doing? And why are you doing it? Because I'm here trying my best. You see me working really hard. You see me doing everything that you need me to do, and that as a human being and as responsibilities, you see me doing it. So why are you not giving me the fruit? And I think that it's also God just trying to remind us that the fruit that we want in the short term does not equate to the fruit he wants to give us long term. Like, it just does not equate. And I was watching this podcast, Christ with Coffee on Ice. I was watching Christ with Coffee on Ice, and she was talking about the waiting season. And she was talking specifically about her really wanting a child. And, of course, she said to kind of substitute she said to kind of substitute, like, because not everybody is in a season where they are craving a child or desiring a child. So she said to kind of substitute your own, what it means to you. And she said that, I forget where, I think she was reading off of something, and she was saying that it's not just God that is like saying, oh, you're not ready, or saying, oh, I'm still working on you, or oh, I need you to work harder at healing yourself, or whatever. Sometimes, because God doesn't always just give us what we want when we're ready. God doesn't really wait for us to be ready. If anybody that knows that meets the love of their life, like, it's always such a weird time in their life, or anytime they get that job opportunity or whatever, like there's always something else that happens that's in the midst of, there's not, so, I mean, I'm not going to say for all cases, because there are exceptions, and you're allowed to be an exception. But I feel like it's very rare to experience a miraculous thing to happen in your life while in the midst of living a crazy, amazing life. Like there's always something else going on when something beautiful, miraculous happens. And I think to me that just kind of shows that God doesn't really necessarily give you something when you're ready. He gives you something when it's time, when it's his time and his will, right? So she was saying in the podcast that there are things that we desire. There's things that we want. And God wants to give us these things, because if we desire these things, there's a reason. And that's because God instilled it into our hearts to want to desire these things. And these are things that I'm talking about that we've kind of wanted as children, like kind of like these childhood desires, not necessarily desires to, you can want to be a millionaire and everything, but I think that there's deeper rooted desires that have more density and light at the same time, instead of just being like, I want to be rich. Like, okay, you know what I mean? Like there's things that have more of a heart, more of a root to them, because at the end of the day, don't we all want to be rich? Don't we all want to have abundance? Don't we all want to be fruitful? It's deeper than that. It's like a desire that is something that you've kind of almost inherited when you were a kid. But she was saying that God gives us these desires, but the reason they don't come to fruition when we want them to is because he's orchestrating things that we don't see. And in her perspective, she was saying how God, you may want a child right now, but what goes into making an actual child is obviously the other person. So not only do you have to be in a season where your body can take care of this baby, but your partner also has to be able to be in a season to meet you and understand you and have a relationship with you, and then also have the body and the mental headspace to be able to take care of this baby. And then not only do you two have to meet and meet at the timing that God needs you to meet, right place, right time, but also God is going to be making a child. God is going to be crafting a new creation into this earth that he is going to love and be so fulfilled with, and be so, he has purposes for this baby. He has generations that this baby is going to have to create, and he has purposes for this baby to have to meet, and he has purposes for this that this baby is going to have to meet, and he has purposes for this baby's babies. And there's so much more that goes into the making of a baby than just us merely just wanting one. You know what I'm saying? Like, it isn't just our experience that goes into the making of this baby. There's also the making of this baby's friends, and then the making of this baby's career, and then the making of this baby's purpose in life. Like, there's so many factors that go into the making of this child that is more than just us wanting the child. And I think, to me, that can factor into my experience, for example, by wanting my career developed, right? I want this so bad, but not only do I want it just for my now experience, there's so many things that go into making sure that there's a position that's available for me. So God has to move things around in a certain career, in a certain field. He has to make a spot available to me. He has to make my future opportunities need a Baeley. He has to make sure that there are areas that are available for a Baeley. He has to make sure that there are avenues and roads and people that I meet at the right place at the right time, and the right connections that I make at the right time, because it's for a Baeley. You know what I'm saying? And he is doing so much, and it goes the same for you, whether you want a partner or whether you want, to start your YouTube channel. And it's raining. There are just so many other things that go into the creating of what you want. And it doesn't always necessarily mean that it's personal. God isn't punishing you, He's not mad at you. And I think we always get those weird human feelings that's like, God is angry with me because I'm not listening to Him, or God must be mad at me because whatever, right? I think that we as humans can't help but, especially from based off our childhood, we can't help but think that God is punishing us because we aren't fully listening to Him, when He's different than our human parents. He is a supernatural God. He created the universe. He created multiple universes. He's created multiple galaxies. God has curated everything that we can see in the waking world and in the sleeping world. But He's created everything. And I think it's so easy for us to just jump to, oh, so you're mad at me, or oh, so you don't love me, or oh, so you love your other daughters more than you love me. Clearly, you know, it's so easy for us to jump to those conclusions because that's what we had to do as a kid. As a kid, we just assumed that anytime we didn't get the toy that we wanted, or anytime that we got yelled at, it's because we did something wrong. And maybe we did do something wrong, but instead of getting listened to and understood, we got yelled at. And so it's kind of easy for us to jump to conclusions with God. But like my friend Andy has said, all roads lead to Rome. No matter what area you go in life, unless you become like a murderer or something, which please don't. But no matter what road you know take in this life, it will lead you to Rome. It will lead you to where you need to go. And I think that is such a beautiful way to think. Like, no matter what, God isn't mad at you, and He's going to get you to where you need to go. And it's going to happen in time. And I think about the stories in the Bible. I was just reading 2 Samuel. No, Luke. I was reading Luke in the New Testament about Elizabeth and Zachariah and how they waited until their very old age. Same with Abraham, waiting until very, very, very old age, because at that time, while the Bible was being written, if you didn't have a child, you were seen as a disgrace to society. And so these people, Abraham, Elizabeth, Zachariah, and other amazing characters in the Bible, they had experienced wanting a child, praying for a child, and waiting till a very, very, very old age to have a child. And I think that though I've told these stories multiple times in the podcast, and though they're very popular stories, I think it's such beautiful reminders that we are in seasons where we aren't necessarily being neglected or forgotten. It's just God is orchestrating things at the time that they are meant to be orchestrated. Elizabeth and Zachariah had to have John because John was going to bring forth the speaking of the Messiah, Jesus. And if John weren't to come at the time that he was meant to be birthed into this earth, people would have long forgotten John. He would have died, and he would have, Jesus wouldn't have been, people wouldn't have been prepared to grasp Jesus and understand that He is the Messiah. So if Zachariah and Elizabeth had John any sooner in their lifetime, then, as you know, Mary, the son or the mother of Jesus, probably wouldn't have been alive, because she was only 16, 15 when she had Jesus. So imagine if they had John before Mary was even alive, or imagine if they had John when Mary was just a child, which she was a child, but like, a toddler child. Imagine if they had John when she was even 10, like if they had John any sooner, then the thought of Jesus being the Messiah wouldn't have come to people's minds. And Jesus was only 6 months younger than John. And also, something I find beautiful in the Bible, in the same chapter, Mary is, she finds out she's pregnant. And, of course, she's nervous because she's a virgin, but she doesn't know if anybody's going to believe her. And, having a baby and cheating, having a, baby out of wedlock, what she's going to tell Joseph. Like, imagine how she felt being impregnated by the Holy Spirit. Like she probably thought that people were going to think that she's insane and a liar, right? But God knew it was the right time. And even though she was only 15, God knew that it was the right time for her to have this child. And God knew that it was the right time for Elizabeth and Zechariah to have this child. There is a timing for everything. So even though I might be in a season where I feel like God isn't listening to me and God isn't understanding my situation, there is nothing new under the sun. There is no new situation under the sun. There isn't. There is always someone experiencing the same things you're experiencing, just a different font. And there's always someone that has already experienced what you are experiencing, that has the wisdom to say, you will get through it and you will get past that season. Because there's always a season of a bunch of fruit, a bunch of newness, a bunch of fulfillment, a bunch of, desires coming to life. And then there's also a season of having to water and having to nourish and having to, grow those roots. There's always a season for everything. And I think that if you're in this season I'm in, I want to remind you of a few things that can kind of just keep you going through these ebbs and flows. As I was talking to my friend Andy about, there's always an ebb and flow in each and every day. There is an ebb and a flow that can happen in one day, and then there can be a whole day of an ebb, and then there can be a whole day of a flow. And I think that experiencing them as ebbs and flows and, and highs and lows and mountains and valleys, I think that it's so important for us to just remember that that's exactly all it is, because an ebb and a flow is a wave. And I'm pretty sure the flow is when the wave crashes, and an ebb is, hold on, let me look this up. An ocean tide's flow, or flood tide, is the incoming phase where water raises and advances toward the coast. Ebb is the outgoing phase where water recedes and flows back into the ocean. Okay, so that's exactly what I thought. The flow is whenever it's crashing onto the beach, and then the ebb is whenever it's receding. And so there are whole days where it just feels like you're just constantly getting so much pushback. You're getting so, it's almost like you feel so heavy in your body and you feel so dense. And then there are days where it just feels like a flow. You feel like that you're one with the wind. You feel like that you're one with nature. You feel like that you're just one with the flow of this life. And I think that that is so beautiful, to be able to experience both in the same day or in the same week, because there's always going to be a flow no matter what. There's always going to be like it says, raises and advances. Like there's always going to be seasons of just high money, high opportunities, high in love, high in abundance, whether that abundance can be money or opportunity or whatever abundance means to you. That could be like your plants are flourishing. It could literally be anything. But there's also going to be an ebb where it just feels like that there just isn't enough. There's nobody texting you. There's no one making plans with you. There just feels like you just seem to be getting hit while you're down, you know? But I think that that's so beautiful to be able to experience either both at the same time, both in the same day, both in the same week. And sometimes it feels like that there is a season where it's just ebb after ebb, but I promise you that there is no way that God loves us so much that he would just give us ebb after ebb. And if that is the case, there is always something to be grateful for. There just is. There just is always something to be grateful for. And I'll never forget, I am going to give you the 3 things that I think could help you in this season of waiting. But there is something that I want to mention. I was with my church doing outreach, and we were giving food to the homeless at Lake Eola. And there was this man named Warren, and I'll never forget him, because he was walking where we were walking, and he approached us, and of course we were like, do you want some food? Do you want a sandwich? Do you want water? And he was saying how he got robbed of the money he had from Social Security. He was negative 300 in his account, and he got beat up really bad. He had to get put into surgery. Yeah, he went through a lot. And it all happened like the same week that we approached him at this Lake Eola. And, we're giving out free food and we're praying for people. And, he was explaining to us his situation, and he like just got out of surgery like a couple days before we approached him. And to think, the flow that he experienced meeting us and us being able to pray for him. And even though like, if you're watching this and you're not a believer, or if you're watching this and you go, okay, well, like, what good does prayer do? You didn't help him with money. You didn't, but we gave him faith. And I think that that is such a higher cost than money ever is. Money can't buy faith. Only God can. And I think he was such a believer, and he, we were praying for him, and he was really, really feeling our prayer, and he was really ingesting what we had to say, and he was really, really feeling our prayer. I could tell. And then there was another group that was also giving back, and they prayed for him as well, and we were just all praying for him. And I don't know, I just think he experienced a really intense ebb. Really intense ebbs. And then the flow was, Jesus is with him. God is with him throughout every single step. And to think that that is happening at the same time that we are in our houses and we're eating our own food and we're watching our favorite show, we're talking to our best friend, to think that that is happening at the same time is so crazy. To think that someone is experiencing such an intense ebb while we are living lives that we feel are mundane and lame, And of course, it's okay to want more for ourselves. It's okay to want more than what you're experiencing. You don't have to just be like, well, somebody has it worse, so I should be grateful. Like, no, you're allowed to want more. But I think experiencing gratitude in this season of waiting is so crucial, because if we don't feel the gratitude for this waiting season, how are we ever gonna feel the gratitude for a season where we have it all? A couple things that I think that you should do, or a few, I guess, if you're one of those people. a few things that I think that you should do in these seasons of just feeling like that you're experiencing so many ebbs, you're experiencing a little more ebb and a little less flow. A couple things that I think that you should do in this season. One is I think that you should journal. Last month, June, I don't know when this is being uploaded, so this might be uploaded in August. So in June, I was journaling every single day for multiple days in a row. And I was so happy. And like, no, not everything was perfect, obviously. But I was experiencing so much joy for no reason. And I believe that that is true joy when you're kind of feeling it for no apparent reason. Like everything around you is imperfect, but for some reason you feel complete. You feel whole, you know? I personally feel that that's such a beautiful experience to be able to say that you are fulfilling everything. You are feeling fulfilled even if everything around you isn't perfect. So I was journaling every day, and no matter how I was feeling, I was communicating to God how I was feeling, and I was talking to God about how I was feeling. I was being honest. I was just like, God, what is going on? What are you doing? You know? And I was also just being thankful. I was like, God, thank you for this season. Thank you for the patience you're instilling into my heart, God. Thank you for everything. I was having so many days where I was just journaling about my dreams and journaling about my desires and journaling about my anger and journaling about everything, just everything, and even though some days there was multiple pages, some days there wasn't that many pages, but it's true when they say that journaling is free therapy, because you're really in communication with God when you're journaling, because you're kind of just writing freehand and you're putting less pressure on what you need to think, and you're just kind of getting it out on paper. And I think that is that's just so fruitful. The other thing that I think that you should do in this season is allow yourself to be bored. Allow yourself to be in moments where you're like, so what am I supposed to be doing right now? Because in moments of boredom is when we come up with our best ideas, is when we feel that we can have the most revelation. And say you start that new book you've finally been wanting to start. Say you've been working on that. You worked on that project that you've been taking months to work on. You are fulfilling the desires that you've been needing to fulfill. I think that is so important, to be bored, because when we're bored, we are finally allowing ourselves to work on the things that we have been procrastinating on. And sometimes when we're working on the things that we've been procrastinating on, we get bored. Like, say you've been you've been procrastinating editing a video or something. We might be bored working on the video, but as you work on it, as you keep going, as you keep pushing through, you end up feeling so much productivity at the end. And you're like, wow, I'm really grateful that I went through that. I'm really grateful that I pushed through and made that video. Like, I'm so glad that I uploaded it, edited it, made the caption. Like, I'm really grateful that I did that. And it only took a couple hours of my life. And now it's over. And now you probably have to make dinner, or you probably have to pick up the kids, or you probably have to fold laundry. You probably have to do something, now, but there was that little wiggle room of boredom, and now you're able to do it, and you're able to say that you did it. And I think boredom is when our best ideas are crafted. You could be sitting and meditating and just staring at the wall, and you're like, I need to write a book about that. I need to write a poem. I need to make a song right now. There's so many moments where we're feeling like creativity or ideas are going to hit us while we're watching a movie, or while we're reading a book, or while we're doing something. And yes, ideas can happen during so many things that are productive and active and, hands on. But the best ideas can also come when we're just doing nothing. These ideas can also happen while we're sitting doing nothing. And I think that that is so cool, that we just kind of let ourselves sit and be bored instead of feeling like we constantly have to be moving and grooving, using our hands and, being constantly productive. I think that, yes, it's important to be productive, but to constantly be productive, I think we're missing out on the ideas that would have hit us if we just sat and just listened. And the last thing that I think that you should do in this season of sexy patience is to just pray. Pray more. Have this be a season where you pray constantly. Have this be a season where you are just, say you're doing the dishes, just be like, God, thank you. Thank you. Or even if you're just like, keep getting rejected, God, I don't know why you're doing this to me, but thank you. I know you're not doing it to me, but for me. I know this isn't happening to me, but for me. I know that you aren't doing this out of spite, but you're doing this out of love. And I just trust you. I trust that this isn't a season you're neglecting me, but this is a season where you are fueling me, you're flourishing me, you are nourishing me, you're making me become the daughter that you want me to be. And I can't ignore that. So I know that you have a purpose for this season, God, and I'm just so thankful. And just pray more than you thought that you could or should or would. Just pray so much, and not even just praying over your situation. Pray for people. Pray for people going through something similar. Pray for people that are going through something completely not what you're going through. Pray more for people than you ever have. And the more you pray for people, the more you kind of step out of your own situation and you're able to help somebody. And I think the more that we're able to help other people and pray for other people, the less we feel so weighed down by our own situation. And that's been happening to me a lot. I feel like I've been given opportunities by God to pray for other people and listen to other people, give guidance to other people, be a listening ear, give advice. I love giving advice, and I love helping other people, and I love being a listening ear for other people. So I think God's been giving me an opportunity to do that. And being in those opportunities is giving me less of a chance to be weighed down by my own thoughts, and I'm actually giving back to God's children. Therefore, I'm feeding my purpose. It might not be in the exact way that I would feed my purpose, but it's in a way that I'm creating relationships and I'm creating bonds, and I'm, drawing people closer to God. And that is our ultimate purpose. Our ultimate purpose isn't to just, in my case, make songs and make music. Yes, that is a purpose, but the purpose is to draw people closer to God and for me to be closer to God. So I think that if I can fulfill that purpose and draw people closer, therefore making me closer, that is the true purpose of this life. That is the true purpose that I was meant to do. And I'm so grateful that I am able to do that in a season where maybe I feel like that nothing's moving. Maybe I feel like I'm getting rejected a lot. Maybe I feel like I'm getting redirected a lot, I should say. I'm able to help so many people, even if it's for just a very, very fleeting moment in time. I'm so grateful I'm able to help people in any area that they need help, even if it's just for a moment. I'm so grateful I'm able to do that for somebody. So yeah, I hope that this video was able to help somebody out there in this world. Even if I was just able to help one person, my mission is complete. Yeah, just pray to God today. Write to him, even if you're angry, even if you're sad. Just write to him. Let him know how you feel. Make a song about it. Make a painting about it. Do some sort of creative act, and you got this. You can do it. And, if there's nobody there to tell you, You're doing so freaking good, and this waiting season isn't for nothing. Your hard work isn't going unnoticed, and you are meant to be the person that you're supposed to be. Who you think you're supposed to be in your head, the creative, the ambitious, the childlike version that you see yourself as, that you see who you're supposed to be, is exactly who you're supposed to be. Don't think that just because you're in a waiting season means that you're being neglected or you're being redirected or that your purpose isn't what you're meant. No, your purpose is what your purpose is supposed to be. And you are being listened to, I promise. And just because you have to make a pivot, just because you have to do something else, does not mean that your purpose isn't your purpose. So just keep that in mind. Pray about it. Journal about it. You are meant to be who you think you're supposed to be. I promise. I love you. Have a great day. And remember to stay